interaction. I don't know how to get your feedbacks right now, but because I don't know how to open chat box while the PPT is on. But if somebody can manage it and help me, at least orally also, how is the thing going so far? Are the slides really easily visible? Is my voice also clear? Some feedbacks would keep me going. Anybody would like to say something? Yes, chat also I can see. Yes, it's good. WebEx is better than Zoom. So while the PPT is on, I can see the chat also. So Dr. Amit Singh says yes. But any questions or any queries or any feedback so far? Audio, video, both clear. That is fine. It's good that because audio should be very clear. But fair enough. Well, let's move a bit. So what exactly do? I am basically a management professional. I have spent a lot of time in management education, and that's how I had rubbed shoulders with likes of Dr. Ranjit Singh in classrooms at IIM Ahmedabad, and we got connected with Dr. Anil Gupta, etc. While I continue my management consultancy, I have forayed into innovation management over the last 10 years, and right now I am managing an entire set of portfolio of innovations. That is, I am a registered patent agent. I draft patents and I file patents under my agency code with IP Office India and globally also through TCT Group. I am also into trademark practice, I'm also into copyright practice, and I'm also into design practice. That makes the entire bouquet of intellectual property set of bouquets. And then I conduct a lot of sessions particularly for technical colleges, like the basics of startup, basics of IPR, basics of patenting. I generally talk about basics of the concept. Once the basics, I always believe, even while I was in academics, you are an academician, most of you would have more experience than me, but I am of the opinion that however complex a subject matter may be, but if you try to make the basics of the subject matter clear to the audience, to the participants, to the students, if that basic part inculcates some amount of interest in the audience, the advanced portion, the audience or the students would try to pick up of their own. We talked a bit about entire procedure of patenting. And as far as the management is concerned, we conduct a lot of sessions around strategic part like business development strategies. So moving on to the next part. Okay. So can somebody share with me on chat as to what is business model or a disruptive business model? Although something is there on the slide, but the business model per se is your way of approaching a market and doing certain activities in the market such that it generates, I am not using the word money, but I am using the phrase wealth. A business model is a way or your roadmap to approach the market in order with the objective of generating wealth. What are the basic concepts or the contents or the components of any business model? They would typically be, how do you create wealth, how do you deliver wealth, and how do you harness the wealth that you are, harness the value that you are creating. Everything in a business model typically revolves around value. How do you create value for your potential clients? How do you deliver that value to the potential client? And once the value is delivered, how do you harness your return in terms of the wealth that you are creating for yourself? So that was the basic. But then what is a disruptive business model? Why am I talking about business model in this session on basics of intellectual property rights? Any guesses? People can unmute themselves and interact also. I won't mind, because some amount of interaction would certainly help. Also, interaction is not coming, but can participants respond at least? Am I reaching out to them? Is voice, video, everything clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I am talking about business model because the next thing that I am trying to talk to you is disruptive business model. What is the difference between a normal business model and a disruptive business model? Is like saying that what is the difference between a traditional business or a traditional enterprise versus a startup? A disruptive business model or a startup typically approaches market with a value proposition which is substantially different than the way things are being done in this particular domain, in his particular domain so far. And whenever you try to do something different, at the same time you do this different thing in such a way that there is value for your client, you are trying to do things in new ways. Now, whenever you try to do something or anything in a new way, typically it would contain some creation of your mind. When there is some creation of your mind, immediately intellectual property comes into picture. In the beginning, I am sharing this slide with you, wherein I am trying to prevail upon you that 21st century, or since later part of 20th century and so far in 21st century and substantially into future also, huge amount of wealth is being generated and will be generated through disruptive business models only. And disruptive business models are the ones which are backed up by innovative ideas, by intellectual property. That is why technocrats and the management professionals, specifically the academicians, must know importance. See, whether it is, I understand that in this particular audience there is a group of technical professors, engineering professors, and management professors, scholars, academicians. For both of them, objective is to create wealth. None of us see management science and engineering or technology. Both of them are called applied sciences. Vis-a-vis pure sciences. We are not into pure research. We are into applied research. And what is applied research? Applied research, my dear friends, is all about innovating such that our work results into some amount of wealth creation. Hence, this wealth creation, huge wealth creation is possible only through innovation. And we will discuss about what are the typical components of innovative thing. Having said so, this is here at least I'll require your inputs. Like, while I will certainly share why I am here on this platform spending 2 hours, 1.5 hours with you all. Of course, one objective is to make friends. But then 2 hours of life are important, 5 days of life are important, 5 days you are into FTP. And what do you think should be your objective of participating in this particular 2 hours of session? What do you think you should be able to get from at least the title of the session? Can somebody share in chat or orally? What do you think should be your take home from this session? Believe me, my dear friends, in any session that you enter, any next 2 hours, not only academic session like this, any activity that you indulge in, one should have a very clear-cut objective. That objective may not ultimately materialize, but there should be an objective. This is what I want to learn, or this is what I want to take home from this session. So learning, Kajol is perfect. All these 5 days we are learning. Actually, Kajol ji is saying that objective of this session is learning. Absolutely right. Every teacher, every faculty is there to share knowledge and to make the students, or none of you are students, all of us are at par. And research scholars are also very scholarly people. But then what should be the take home of this session? I'm trying to simplify that learning new knowledge and further sharing it. I don't know how senior Rituji and Kajolji are compared to me, but I've tried to fine tune these particular responses. That the responses that we are getting are abstract responses. The response should be typically, and you can fine tune on them, I want to learn what are the basic types of intellectual properties. If the faculty is not able to at least even tell me what are the basic types of intellectual property, the objective of the session would not be served. This is how you should evaluate every session. Every session that you enter into, you should go into that session with 2 objectives in mind. Faculty may talk something which may be different than what you had hoped for, but then this is how your interest in the session would be maintained. Anyways, we should keep going, and I would share my objective of conducting this 1.5 hours of interaction with you. My objective, my dear friends, is that I understand that almost all of you are from technical background and a few from management discipline also. But in management sciences also these days a lot of patents are possible to file. My objective is that from this about 300, 400 people's group of FDP participants, out of them about 100 of them are live, and many of the non-present participants would be seeing this particular recording later on. My objective is that at least 10 patents should be filed from this audience within next 1 year. We may not interact back, but then I'm sharing this with this object, and about 200 patents 5 years down the line. I'll also discuss why I'm expecting this. What is the importance of patent? What are the pitfalls of patent? What is the debate about patent? Everything we will talk. But this is what the objective with which I have entered into science. Believe me, my dear friends, I had taught management science for about 10 years, various subjects. And you know, as a teacher, when you enter into class and then you get out of the class, I might have undertaken umpteen number of teaching classes for MBA students. Every time that I go into the classroom, I go into the classroom with the objective that although we will be certainly touching upon and covering the syllabus and curriculum and all those, but within that also these 2 aspects I want to put forth into my students in this 1 hour. With this objective, when you enter the classroom, your focus changes altogether. So this is what I want to achieve at the end of this particular session. 10 patents from within 1 year and 200 patents within next 5 years. Let's move. If there are any questions, you can put on chat. Chat is live with me. What is the importance of intellectual property rights or innovations? Because everybody knows this will go a bit quick. Everybody knows that 21st century is a knowledge economy. People say it is innovation economy, and innovation is the new currency. You know, dollars don't matter, US dollars don't matter, Indian rupees don't matter. What matters is how much a country is innovative. Israel is the best example of what they call, trying to build huge in literally desert. They have created huge amount of wealth out of desert, riding on knowledge economy, riding on innovation economy. I mean, it is right to say, but I cannot stop myself repeating that it is the innovation that creates wealth. That's why we are discussing innovation. That's why everybody is discussing it. That's why every university is talking about it. That's why every government is talking about it. Now, when we talk of innovation, there are various facets of innovation, but patents generally represent major chunk of innovation. I'm not trying to generalize, but just to take the discussion further, I won't even, if somebody says, no, it is not only the patents that represent innovations, I will not enter into debate, but just to take the discussion forward, let's say that patents represent major chunk of your innovations. What is the global scenario? Let us see. Slightly old data, but the situation may not have been very much different than what this data shows. And that is, in 2017, from USA, 6 lakh patents were filed. And in China, 14 lakh patents were filed. These figures are important because against that, only 46,000 applications were filed in India. This is a very, very important figure which we should compare. And going down the line over the last 5 years, the situation is improving. And although the official data is not available, we have covered some ground, but we are very, very substantially far behind these figures of 14 lakhs. Now, quality, etc., we can talk, but let me tell right now itself, and we will discuss later on also, I am the firm proponent of the maxim that it is the quantity that begets quality. I also want quality. I also want quality research papers. I also want quality patents. But if you want that my student should file a patent or publish a research paper which is world class and epoch making and path breaking, and unless and until he makes some rubbish type of 5 patent applications or some normal research papers, and the 6th one would be good, no, that is not acceptable. If that is what you are saying, I am not with you. I personally say that you should keep on producing. And the more you produce, the more expert you get, more confident you get of creating something which is really, really path-breaking. All of us must have published research papers. It is when you publish 6th, 7th or 10th research papers that you are really satisfied that this research paper is worth a good work. Hence, the patents or whatever work, the more you do, more are the chances that from this whole universe of larger quantity, you will get quality outputs. Hence, out of 14 lakh patents from China, we may say that 13 lakh 50,000 may be rubbish. I have no authority to pass such judgment, but just even for the sake of argument, even if they are rubbish, the rest of 50,000 would certainly have potential to catapult China as a new knowledge economy. Hence, I firmly believe that we must keep on innovating, even if certain works of our innovation have not seen the light of the day in terms of commercialization. We will talk about commercialization part also, but this is the global scenario. Let's move on. Okay. Let's move on. How do we move on? Okay. So if we see the same thing in graphical format, there also we in India are substantially far below compared to China, USA, Japan, Europe, European Patent Office, etc. So this is situation. Even now, what is disturbing is that even within a small amount of, let's say, about 50,000 patents filed in India, this figure is really very disturbing. That out of this 50,000 also, most of the patents filed in India are by the foreign applicants. Like, Qualcomm filed 1,500 patents, Samsung filed 1,300. So the point is that Indians still need to cope up a bit. Moving on, this also we can discuss, but so let's talk a bit about commercialization part also. So whenever we talk of, let's say, innovations or the patents, invariably there is a discussion that yes, XYZ filed 100 patents, but how many commercialized? If not commercialized, if only one commercialized, those 99 were useless, and patents are not commercialized, and the work is not available to society, etc. It has filed. The world with largest number of innovations, largest number of patents. But believe me, even for this company, even for Samsung, even for Apple, only 5 to 10% of their patents really generate wealth for them. And if it is only 5% or 7% or 10% of their patents are generating wealth for them, and 90% are not generating, should they stop innovating? Should they stop patenting? I think the message is clear that we must innovate and we must protect our innovation. So that is it. The voice was breaking because of some problem, I know, and now it is clear, is also good. So, but you are my dear participants, you are responding good about the voice quality and screen quality, etc. But I would also like you to be slightly involved and keep commenting, even if not in terms of questions, but at least in some way, if you can keep commenting about last 5 minutes of discussion in chat box, that would keep me engaged, and that would keep you also engaged and hooked up to the session that is going on. Anyways, innovation is also is not only about commercialization, my dear friends. It is also about mindset. It is also about culture. It is also about creating an innovation-oriented work setting. It is also about organizational culture. What values do you want to appreciate in your team? How do you reward your team? I think if you really want to keep the team, maybe in a commercial organization or even in an academic setting, I am of the firm belief that the reward structure should be revolving around how much innovation, how much innovative efforts that the person being evaluated has put. And now, how much efforts that he has put to create some sort of innovative work is a subjective matter. So we need to bring some objective criteria into evaluating innovation portion of his or her work. I personally believe there can be different views also. I personally believe that number of patents filed, for example, may be a good scale of trying to gauge the efforts that the person being evaluated has put in terms of trying to put his creative juices into work and create some innovative outcome. This is my humble opinion. So moving on to the next topic, or the next set of things, is that the importance of intellectual property for startups and enterprises and investors. Basically, everything, wherever money is poured, believe me, money is poured, money is invested by the investors in any enterprise. More prominently in startups, when investors see that the business model of this particular startup is fortified by protection of the startup's intellectual property. The reason is that investor would be wary or will be afraid of competition copying the business model of my investee organization. And when some copying takes place, the healthy amount of margins or the profit that my investee company was to gain would be diluted. Hence, if there is a protected intellectual property that is being commercialized, it would always fetch good amount of interest from investors. FTO is something that we will not go into details, like potential infringement, IP infringement risk. So if you have some intellectual property and if you are commercializing it, there is a good amount of protection that is available to you. And if somebody tries to copy, you can sue them and you can stop them also copying your business model. And you can continue to do your commercial activity with peace of mind. Somebody is talking about, it's a good question. I think Ritu Singh ji is asking, what is the status of pharma industry patents in India? So let me generally respond to that. It is not only the pharma industry, but generally, cutting edge research is very far and few in between emanating from India. But to be fair to Indian innovators have a legacy of maximum 25-30 years of free-hand and free experimentation, and a lot of capital being provided to them for experimentation, etc. vis-a-vis European companies or Japanese companies, which have, or the US companies, which have had a lot of money over the last 150 years, and the culture is also there to innovate. Under those circumstances, if our Bharat Biotech is able to invent indigenous vaccine for COVID-19, I mean, there could not be a better example of the competence of our pharma industry, in spite of the fact that it is known to be a generic industry, whereby it is said that Indian pharmaceutical manufacturers typically manufacture pharmaceutical formulations or the APIs which have completed the 20 years of patent regime. On the whole, that is true, but the things are improving, and I'm very, very hopeful that the next 5 years, not only in pharmaceutical industry, but in engineering and information technology also, will see fast-breaking technologies coming from India. Coming back to our topic. Somebody, the administrator is saying my present is, you require my PowerPoint presentation, let me warn you on the lighter note that all my works are copyrighted, and I'm borrowing my response and further elaboration onto this copyrighted definition, which I had borrowed from Professor M.R. Dixit of IIM Ahmedabad while I was with Dr. Ranjit Singh, whereby he had said that all his works are copyrighted, meaning thereby that everybody has rights to copy my works. All right. So this presentation will be available to you. You can use it without mentioning of my name. You can use the straight PPT, no issues. So whatever I have gathered from various sources. I just put them together, and it is all available to you. The PPT is with Ranjit Singh ji, who is hereby authorized by me to share with all the participants. Moving on. Let's move a bit quickly. Definition of startup is not the topic of today. We will discuss very interestingly, and I would like some responses also. What is the difference between real property, that is physical property, and intellectual property? So, even while seeing the PPT, would somebody like to respond? What do you think is the difference between intellectual property and real property? Physical property. Real property means physical property. What is the difference between intellectual property and real physical property? Participants are not
tangible and other is intangible.
Well, physical is physical and other is intangible.
Right.
All right, so that's good, but I'll request participants to be slightly interactive, not only for me, but that will keep you, all the participants, hooked on. And 2 hours of life are important, and once you are doing one thing, you should be focused on it. Anyway, so physical property is something whose physical boundaries can be tested and can be earmarked. Let's say this is a mobile, which I think you are able to see, and this is the physical property, which is about 2 inches in length and 5 inches in 2 inches in width and 5 inches in length and about 4 mm, 3 mm in depth, etc. So this is how you can define. If it is a plot of land, the physical boundaries are physically defined. I may not be able to elaborate much, but when it comes to intellectual property, it is very, very difficult. It is almost impossible to define the physical boundaries. Let's say I have a patent. Let's say this is a patent. This is the physical boundary of this patent. That if you enter into this part, you are infringing onto my patent right. And if you are into this part, you are free to do so. No, there is a hazy area, there is a gray area, and it's very difficult to define these borders. And that is why it becomes difficult to protect the rights of the innovators. But then there are ways to manage. So the first difference is that it's very difficult to earmark the boundaries of intellectual property. Boundaries of property are protected by a physical fence of a real physical plot of land, or your bungalow, or your whatever, is defined by a physical fence. You can put physical fence around your plot of land, and any trespasser, you know immediately as soon as somebody trespasses into your plot of land, you know that somebody has crossed that fence, and you thereby initiate action against him by calling police, etc. But here in intellectual property, it is very difficult to prove, in spite of the fact that you think that if somebody is infringing upon your intellectual property and is trespassing into your intellectual property fence, but it is very difficult to prove that he has entered into your property. The other party who has entered into your property, who is copying your property, who is infringing your property, would submit that no, I am not infringing infringing your property, because these are the reasons. What is protected is only this much, and what the patentee is trying to say is this much. Hence, there is a dispute. Boundaries are also defined and described in the ownership deed. If you have a plot of land, you go to sub-registrar's office when you purchase, and it is defined that to the north of this plot of land there is a road. There on the right, on the south of this plot of land there is a railway line. On the left of this plot of land there is a plot number 13. On the right there is a plot number 12. Hence, the boundaries are ownership deed defines your boundaries. The deed of ownership itself clarifies. But here when you get a patent, you do get a piece of paper which says that you have patent on this. But then when it comes to proving whether somebody has come into your property or not, somebody is infringing your property or not, it becomes very difficult. Hence, the management. What do you need to manage, which is slightly difficult to manage? Which is like you do not have a course on managing boundaries of real estate, because it is very simple. But when it comes to intellectual property, these are the complications. That's why whole set of knowledge base has been created to manage innovation. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide to talk about differences. So in the last slide we talk about differences between physical property and intellectual property, and in this slide we will talk about what is the difference between the phrase appears to be synonymous, but then there is a difference between intellectual property and intellectual property rights. Would somebody like to share with me your thoughts about what do you think? You may be, I don't know what is your background, but you must have a view. Is there a difference between, let's say, intellectual property and intellectual property rights? What do you say? Anybody in the chat box? What is the difference between intellectual property and intellectual property rights? Or are they same? Or unnecessarily two words? Something, anything? Ranjit ji, how many participants are live?
Sir, right now 71 are visible.
My dear friends, 71 of you are listening to me. All of you are senior respected professors and the scholars. What do you think is there a difference between intellectual property and intellectual property rights, or are they same? Vikas ji is saying something. Well, how about others? Vikas ji is right, but how about others? I want at least one response, then only I'll proceed. Please elaborate. हाँ, मैं तो करूँगा, रितु जी, मैं तो करूँगा. But how about yours? What do you think? Right or wrong is not important. What do you think? IPR is existing with law. So let us interact a bit with Dr.
Anil ji. Good afternoon, Anil ji.
कौन साहब बोल रहे हैं?
विकास शर्मा बोल रहा हूँ.
हाँ विकास जी, आपसे तो हम बात करेंगे, लेकिन औरों से भी थोड़ी बात कर लें कि
जी बिल्कुल.
Fair enough. Anyway, so what is intellectual property? Anything that you create out of your mind is intellectual property. Not anything that you create out of your mind. Yeah? Is everything that you create out of your mind is intellectual property? Yes or no? Is everything that we create out of our mind is intellectual property? Yes or no? Forget about trademark. Is everything that we create out of our mind is intellectual property? Yes or no? No, because you are wrong.
Yes.
If okay, let us proceed. If everything that we create out of our mind is not intellectual property, then what needs to be supported for something that we create out of our mind to be an intellectual property? what should be the criteria of our creation such that it becomes intellectual property? चलिए, let's simplify something. Let's simplify it. What is a property? What is a property? A piece of stone lying on the road is a physical substance, but is it a property? Yes or no? Originality की बाद में बात करेंगे. A small stone lying on,
No.
it has to be it has to have value. Yes. Something, anything. Yes. Physical or intellectual, anything which has the value is a property. Hence, what I was trying to prevail upon you, my dear friends, is that everything that we create out of our mind is not necessarily intellectual property. Something that we create out of mind which has a value and preferably a commercial value is known as an intellectual property, especially in the commercial domain. Something that you create out of a mind which has some emotional value for you, which would certainly be an intellectual property for you, but for the rest of them it may not be an intellectual property, but certainly an intellectual property for you because you have an emotional value for it. The point here is that, my dear friends, everything that is created of mind is not intellectual property. It is certainly an intellectual creation.